The Motivation Manifesto, 9 Declarations to Claim Your Personal Power by Brendan Burchard. Chapter 2. Reading it live, Jeffrey W. Jansen. Chapter 2. Read by Jeffrey W. Jansen. Chapter 2. He who is brave is free. 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, I am Jeffrey W. Jansen. This is today's second book. I do this during lunch. The Motivation Manifesto, 9 Declarations to Claim Your Personal Power by Brendan Burchard. Okay, we're on chapter 2. He who is brave is free. Fear rips us from freedom. It is the destroyer of greatness. We know this, and we know we should tame our mind in order to defeat fear. Yet look at all the adults who act like powerless children and avoid the life they want because of fear. The social oppressed say, well, you don't understand. People are always holding me back, and I'm afraid to chase my dream because others will judge and reject me. And the self-oppressed say, you don't understand. I can't chase my dreams because I might fail. I might not be good enough. These are deliberating thoughts of the fearful. Should we wish to live a vibrant life, we must transcend such childish and look fear in the eyes, recognize it as a mental construct, and that we alone fuel with small thoughts that portray our magnitude. It is the first realization of the mindful human, unless we're being chased by a deadly animal or a deranged human, or face imminent physical harm like falling to our death. Fear is just bad management of our mind. Today, we are faced with a multitude of playsaters and licensed professionals, many of whom have never actually transformed lives, who try to fool us into believing fear is positive emotion in life. They say fear is natural, or a little fear will motivate you to try harder, or fear builds character. But in most cases, this is wrong. Fear is the thief of humanity's light. It may be a necessary instinct that causes us to make smart choices to flee from pain, danger, or struggle. But we must be wary of it. More people find harm in life because of fear than benefit by it. Those who seek to make fear a positive thing are justifiers, not sages. They aren't champions of consciousness. Attempting to conceal fear as a friend is like forcing a wolf to be a pet. Soon the pet will eat us alive. Declaring that we will master our fears is the first great leap toward freedom. Our vitality, growth, and destiny all demand that we can topple fear. As so manage hangs in the balance, let us better understand what fear really is. Fear is the human motive of aversion. Fear doesn't help us commit to higher aims. It doesn't help us imagine greatness. Its sole aim is to intimidate release from threat, strain, or pain. It often becomes, by all means, necessary approach to controlling any given situation so that the body, but most often the ego, can feel safe and unchallenged. Fear was given to us as a motive to avoid physical harm and death. That is it. We are the ones who have perverted it into a tool for the ego's protection. Almost all the fear we experience today has nothing to do with physical threat. We have taken this impulse for safety and bastardized it into an ego-driven desire to feel more emotionally comfortable. We've hacked its short-term nature into a long-term tool to avoid difficult circumstances in order to satiate our base desires for approval. Fear has become a crutch for emotional weakness, and as with all crutches, we shall fall slave to its use unless we once condition our strength. Most people do not like to discuss fear because it inevitably exposes the ugly truth that we are more often fleeing from ourselves than from actual danger. The modern worries that we succumb to are simply byproducts of our own misuse of this primitive motive. Almost all fear we experience today and its result cowardly thinking and behavior is just imagined social drama created by the unchecked mental impulses and conditioning. We are afraid of being rejected, isolated, and abandoned, not of being eaten alive, or those kinds of social fears can be overcome by willful practice. When someone says, "I am fearful of public speaking," they do not mean that they are worried someone in the audience is going to attack them physically. Rather, they mean they are afraid of failure. Their issue is a challenge, not of real safety, but of an emotional comfort. If they were speaking more accurately, they would say, "I am afraid of how I will feel emotionally and whether I will live up to my expectations of myself and the expectation of those who put me on the stage. I am afraid of how I will look. I'm afraid that I may not do well. I'm afraid I will lose my place or draw a blank. I am afraid I will not be respected." Notice the order of these comments. It is not fear in running me. It is I am afraid. The I is leading the way. The ego is the charge. Naturally, we struggle with free self-expression, and we all want to do our best. We would love the power to be ourselves on the world stage at all times. Our great challenge is that in an unconditional mind, fear is louder and more intense and immediate than our desire for self-mastery or for contributions to others. Fear steals thunder from the more noble drive to ascend to our higher selves and make our greatest difference. We are more alert to the sound of dogs barking than angels singing. What can be done? The cost of fear. To tame fear, we must first recognize its horrid effects on our lives. What comes of us when we are motivated by fear? We lose our emotional center and mental character. Our thoughts become frazzled and riddled with anxiety. All conscious thinking, intelligence, and behavior narrow to self-protections, limiting our capabilities to be open and strong. Our natural tendencies for genuine self-expression are paused, and our ability to act to fulfill our dreams is paralyzed. When we allow fear as a constant in our lives, our ambitions and behaviors become small and constrained. We become timid and stressed. We withdraw. We become cowards. Life's energy and trophies, all things trapped in the cage of fear, smothered and die quickly. This is not a philosophical discussion. Real, tangible harm comes from allowing fear to overrule our drive to personal freedom. Some people become such slaves to fear that they constantly feel powerless, inferior, ready to give up. They allow others to hurt them because they do not speak up for themselves. They quietly play it safe, never showing themselves to the world. These are the meek who stood to inherit the earth, but never rose to claim it. The sullen who watch atrocities wear on without a word of defiance. Good people stand at the sidelines of history and never make their mark. People lose their businesses because fear stops them from changing and innovating. Marriages end in divorce because one or both spouses are too afraid to open up, to communicate to the vulnerable or sexy or honest. On a social level, all the worst atrocities of mankind stem from fear. Those compelled by fear become terrified, distrustful, and also hateful of other people. Their fear gives rise to an overweening self-protection, to such a degree that they want power over others. Their ego is so fiercely challenged by the rise of people unlike themselves that they become the bigots and tyrants and sometimes grand-scale murderers whose unchecked fears burn into a perilous soup of unspeakable actions against humanity. These are the Khalgigas, Muscolinis, and Bin Ladens of the world who hate others because they fear those who stand in the way to power. Mussolini's and Calculus and Bin Ladens of the world because they fear who stand in the way of power. They are the Robertius, Eichmanns, Sungs, Kamenias, and the Hitlers, Stalins, and Ammons. It's the same story over and over again. Those with power who are so plagued by insecurity that, rather than directing their strength to lift everyone up, take comfort and pleasure in pushing down those who are unwilling themselves. Those they do not understand or value. There can be no doubt that whether in daily life or on the world stage, fear is the great usurper of progress and personal freedom. It is a sad but real fact that history is littered with good men and women who simply let the motive of fear drive their lives. Nothing ever cued them to right their mind, and they never chose to work hard to condition their thoughts to tame fear, to choose consciousness over the ease of running away from life. I'm going to stop real quick. I apologize for saying those names of historians wrong. Yes, I know I study history, but sometimes the big names of villains in history, they're big names. I apologize for saying them wrong. Okay, next. Aversion versus ascension. Fear rules us only if we let it. In almost all cases, it is something that we can choose to activate or not activate. We can choose to run or not, even if our impulse is blaring at its highest decibel to run. How else does the firefighter enter the inferno to save people? How does the captain of a ship give the lifeboats to the others? How do the anxious still share their voice with the world? Perhaps we don't feel like we can make this choice to be more brave than fearful, but eventually we can all become masters of our impulses. A great maturity opens in the human psyche when we accept that we can control our impulses by conditioning our thoughts, and that we alone are responsible for emotions and reactions in life. It is difficult to accept, but no less true. If fear is winning in our lives, it is because we simply keep choosing it over our other impulses to be strong or bold or great. This is the story of the stay-at-home mom who wants to go back to work but didn't apply because she is letting her fear of her own worth hold her back. It's the employee who wants to be asked for a deserved raise but feels afraid she might be denied. It's the young man who feels inspired to try out for a musical but worries what his friends will think. It's the obese person too embarrassed to enter the gym even though he knows his health and very existence is on the line. Most adults understand that they are making a choice to let fear win in any given situation. Ask an honest person, did you know you were acting from fear the last time you stopped behaving as yourself or working towards something you wanted? And did you know you had another choice at that time? The honest person will say, yes, I knew I had a chance to speak up for myself or to be more courageous. But I was scared. I didn't want to be judged or hurt, so I chose the easy route. Let us be clear once more that if we are not free, if we are not genuinely expressing our full personality and pursuing our true desires, it is because we are choosing to act from aversion rather than ascension. Thus, our grand battles in life are between our desire for freedom and our fearful impulse that destroy desire. The juxtaposition could be no less stark. At any moment, we are acting from a state of mind driven by fear of freedom. And the stakes are high. All advancement in our maturity and growth as individuals and societies hinges on our motives. Either fear will win or freedom will win. Let that phrase ring true in our minds as we carry out our ideal lives. Fear wins or freedom wins. And so let us ask ourselves, will my life be about aversion or ascension? The former is a life motivated by fear, a small life that turns from hardship towards short-term safety, self-protection, and egotistic ease. The other is a life motivated by freedom, a reason to act from our true humanity towards long-term growth, authentic self-expression, and enlightened effort. One is the condition of weak and constrained and conforming and suffering beings. The other, the conditioning of strong, spontaneous, independent, and fulfilled beings. One reaches us as a low and often pathetic impulse. The other requires our full consciousness and mental devotion to courage and self-mastery. The social conditions of fear. Why are some people more driven by fear than freedom? It can only be because it is the past they were conditioned to be fearful, either by those around them or by their poor application of mental facilities. There is no genetic curse or personality trait that permanently condemns one person to fear more than the other. Even a genetic predisposition for anxiety can ultimately be flipped on or off by mental conditioning. We are not slave to our history. We can be free by our conscience, thoughts, and disciplined habits. Let us begin with understanding how fear is socially unconditioned. Fearful people tend to be shaped by past interactions. They were pushed and molded into being timid, weak, and afraid by the critical parents, bullying peers, or small-minded teachers and bosses. The people around them were always cautioning them or harming them, and so they became habituated to the impulse of fear. It came up so often they got used to it. From fearful past, they have generated a fear-driven presence. This is not to blame our past or excuse of our fears. When people chose fear as an adult, they are choosing not to manage or overcome it. This is difficult work for many because fear has become their default impulse. The thoughts ruling their minds and their self-talk replay the cutting barbs of the critics and misguided caretakers who once deemed them. The good news is we can change this conditioning. When we awaken to responsibility, realize that nothing can be done about our past, but to see it from a new perspective. We can release ourselves from its grip. We cannot control how others treat us yesterday. So let us work instead on understanding how we are currently dealing with those who stoke our fear today. The great efforts to move our lives forward always come down to a new moment when we interpret our fear and activate our freedom by choosing how to feel, interpret, or direct our lives. Part of the mastery of life comes from anticipating that same kinds of characters that sought to instill fear yesterday shall be met again today or tomorrow. Knowing this, we become wary of people who chip away at our freedom. These are the worries, weakling, and in a rare case, the wicked. The warriors. The warriors around us today are often the biggest threat to inflaming our fear. They are most likely to steal our motivation and destiny because they often seem to be our friends. We're so close to them that their anxiety can bleed onto us. We must learn to control our reactions around them. Most warriors are not unkind people. They have no clue of the fear they impose on our lives or the way their incessant voices of doubt oppress our potential. They don't see that they cause treachery by arguing for us to play it safe. It's the loving mother who says, "Careful, honey," at every turn as her child goes about the normal activities of childhood. The coworker who gives us 10 reasons why we might get in trouble and not a single word about how we might change the world. The lover who incessantly fears we as a couple are going to fail and keep imploring us to back down from a fight or from the edge of any risk. These people believe they are thoughtful, loving, and protective. Their cautious words are most often delivered from a loving place. They want good for us. They feel a duty to protect us from hurt, and so they try to direct us towards the well-worn paths that they understand. These are our parents, friends, peers, lovers, neighbors, and leaders. It's an awkward social reality. We must protect ourselves from being limited by those who care for us as much as those who blatantly oppose us. What can be done? We must learn to hear doubt, worry, and anxiety with great acuity, and we must not integrate other people's fears into our own decision-making. Developing this kind of acuity is easy for the conscious person, since almost all warriors use the same language and arguments. They favor cautioned reason as their shield of choice in protecting us. Their matter-of-fact tones and phrases all sound the same. Be careful, you might get hurt. Be careful, you don't know what could happen. Be careful, they might fire you, forget you, reject you, hate you, spurn you, despise you, pick on you. Are you sure you want to do that? You wouldn't like that. That's not who you are. You can't do this. That's not really your thing. Don't forget where you came from. I added that last one. Have we not heard all of this before? Surely we all know someone adept at crafting eloquent arguments for why we mustn't be too loud, too crazy, too intent on pursuing our passion or taking too many leaps into the unknown. These are the calm and convincing ones in our lives. Those who present clear-eyed explanations about how we could be hurt, embarrassed, or exhausted if we take risks or try to be different, creative, alive, and bold. These people are clearly not callous. They believe they are doing their duty. They say motherly and justice, working with great care to protect us. But let us be aware of the saboteur of dreams cloaked in the good-willed friend. How many souls have failed to soar because they have suffocated in a loved one's worry? If we are not vigilant, being around constant worry can quickly limit who we are and what we might be capable of. What can we do then with our caring families and friends who unintentionally limit our vision or striving? We should be generous in our interpretations of their concerns, as they are likely unaware of their insidious effect, which is to teach us to at first consider risk or harm before all else. We must harbor no ill feelings towards these warriors. They deserve patience and understanding because they may be trapped in a mindset that favors aversion over ascension. Let them be governed by fear if they must, but do not join them. All we can do is listen intently to those who trust and be sober in our estimates of any real danger. But to those who we do not know and who do not know us, to those who want us to stay put in their bubble of belief, about who we are and how far we can go in life. We must close our minds. We must forgive their small thinking, and we must look beyond it to see vaster horizons for ourselves. We must not worry what could go wrong, but rather wonder what magnificence could enter our lives when we are constantly expressing our genuine selves and pursuing our true passions. Let us obsess about freedom, not fear. And so a deep line must be cut into the sand. There can be no tolerance for warriors in life. All great men and women come to this same determined conclusion. No matter how kind-hearted deliverer, we cannot give prolonged consideration to those who repeatedly instill fear in us. It demotivates and demoralizes. When our dreams become vivid and enlivened us, we must venture forth, with or without worry, family and friends, even if it brings some sorrow and sacrifice. To allow other people's anxieties to defeat our drive is to succumb to oppression. The next category of people we must anticipate are the weak and slothful, those who speak out against the efforts and hardships required to be remarkable. It would be too simple to say, do not give your ear to a lazy person, as he will surely pour fear and empathy into your soul. But it is nonetheless a powerful mantra. Choosing not to listen to the weaklings demands true personal power, especially for those of us who are good listeners and empathetic friends, as we want to respect their opinions and circumstances. We must be discerning with those we know well and then allow close. It is possible to listen lovingly while being careful about that energy we absorb. With strangers, it makes sense to be guarded. It is easier to be seduced by the bon vivants and those who promise lazy afternoons of eating, drinking, gossiping, and watching decent reality. We can be fooled by their leisurely pace, making their lack of ambition for serenity. But these kinds of people can be more apathetic than relaxed. We must beware them, for they can make us fear the thing that advances our lives. Effort. Take it easy, they say. Why work so hard? Nothing you do is going to last or mean anything or make a difference anyway. It's as though on an ambitious journey, these people wave towards us on the sidelines with a smile, yet to whisper to others that our toils are wasted of time. They make like watchmen, warning us with great glee against oncoming struggles. But the closer to these idlers that we pass, the more we hear them silently joking at our expense, demeaning our efforts, criticizing our comrades in struggle. Beware the rashest village idiot who takes pleasure in making faraway jabs, taunting the strides passing by, hoping to instill the fear of unworthiness. Who are these idlers? They are the worshippers of ease who rarely feel the satisfaction of a hard day's work. They are the aimless souls who pursue no real path, no purpose, no higher desire than that would demand the best of them. They may never have found the courage to abandon complacency. They are glib cynics who have added little real value to the world. They are the escapists, those who bolt away at the first inkling of a challenge. They scorn the presence of those bolder than they. They are fatalists who believe that mankind's star is not rising but sinking. They are the resigned, the miserable, few who long ago gave up their powers so that they might be absolved the responsibility of living a remarkable life. We mustn't take these loiterers on the sidelines for friends. These people inspire nothing but weakness, and their innovations to a life of ease are lures to a life of indolence. Their ease is not what we are after. For what good is a life without struggle? What can be learned? How else do we grow? What mastery can there be without a real effort, real sweat, real toil, real thunder? Yes, we should meet with caution the apathetic and unambitious, those too weak to fight or try or endure. They have forfeited their freedom. They don't have the resolve to pursue their highest selves or any meaningful purpose, and so they are not examples for us. What a great irony that humans often follow the weakest among us, the cynics, the trolls. But we mustn't give these weak fools our time either. We must understand that the lowest rung of humanity is populated by the couch critics, the empathetic advisors who, from a detached perch of safety, believe that every within that breezes over their small minds and every one of their witless arguments ought to carry the same weight as the hard-won wisdom of those who are actually in the fight, whose minds have been sharpened with real-world experience, whose legends are being forged by action. We must remember that most cynics and judgmental tyrants who seek to oppress us are small, frustrated people who take the heat off their own apathy and failures by labeling us as narcissistic strivers or undeserving fakes. They try to belittle us to stop feeling so little themselves. These are those who hide behind a computer or a powerful position and exert their uninformed opposition on us so that they feel better about themselves. Should they be asked about their own contributions, they generally fall silent or lash out in an incoherence and meaningless tributes. Theirs is a sad fate, where their only sense of success is to point out failures. To elevate themselves, they must demean us. Their jabs are sad demonstrations that nothing is easier for small minds than to discount great ones. For those who dwell in ignorance, everyone from out of town is suspect. Beware those too apathetic to strive for important things, as they ultimately instill indifference, swaying so many independent people from their path to greatness. And so let us stay on our path. Let us choose the strenuous life, taking pride and finding honor in our struggle, in our contributions. We will not fear the exhaustion and anxieties that manifest dreams and unceasing hard work can bring. We will keep a joyous heart even as we toil, for our toils bring us toward that which we find meaningful. Let us humbly pass by the watchers and the aimless, the bordered and the bellyaching. They have nothing to offer but distractions and useless comment. Let us make our higher cause than comfort, a great calling than mediocrity. We have duties to complete, interactives to begin, battles to fight, real victories to celebrate. And so forward we go with strength and fire. The wicked. As we anticipated, the weak-willed, let us also anticipate that woven in the tapestry of human goodness are also threads of mean, power-hungry, deceptive individuals. We cannot avoid the cruel people we will encounter in life. The more of them coming at us, the more we put ourselves out there, the more we seek to lead, the more we express ourselves and our full potential, the more we are motivated to change the world, the more we rise, the more they turn up. This is not some kind of paranoia. The fact that there are mean people in the world is not something to fear. It is simply something to acknowledge and prepare for. Business people should not be shocked that the competition will seek to destroy them. No surprise should flash across the face of a new executive when she is met with resistance during her first meeting simply because she is a woman. When the stranger lies to hurt our reputation, we should know that it is common thing, and that it is happening to us only because we are trying to do important things in the world. If we are conscious to the existence of rude, ignorant, cruel people, then we can control our reactions when they emerge from the darkness and attempt to steal our light. A society so afflicted by ease and conformity always flinches at the arrival of those boldly seeking personal freedom. As we express our true selves in abundance towards our dreams, we will meet unfathomable, unending resistance. Those who play a zero-sum game of life, who believe they cannot succeed if we do, may launch slings and arrows of envy. Or they might seek with soft and duplicitous words to lull us back into the fold. Those at our sides may stab us with doubts about our readiness, or warn that the world is too hostile a place. And those in front of us, fearful of losing their place, may hurl wicked accusations and build walls to keep us back. We must ready ourselves and be wary of the effect such tyrants can have in making us feel fearful in life. We must be especially vigilant in our reactions to contemptuous, small-minded people who fight for over and oppressive power over others. The brute who towers over others, using his physical presence to intimidate. The greedy liar at work who seeks to wreck us. The abusive lover. The vicious neighborhood gossip. The condescending bullies and the sweet-talking con artists. While we mustn't let these few tar the goodwill of the majority, we are wise not to deny their existence. This sort of extreme tyrant has a vast terrain of ego to defend. They can be narcissistic, paranoid, angry people. Their commonly is that they are on constant search for seeking their level of success. They want to wreck them. Their goal is to oppress our will and energy so that they can feel better about themselves. Consciously or unconsciously, they see our advance as a threat to their power or a sign of their weakness. And so if they can minimize us, they can minimize their loss of stature. We see this sort of tyrant often at the helm of struggling countries, protecting interests with a fearful hand, enslaving people and ostracizing dissents. We see them in corridors of commercial success, lording over their underlings, wielding harsh criticism or rumor, denying the advancement of the deserving. They are often familiar members, battering the very ones who depend on them. All their taunts and their threats and terrors function to make us fear for our safety, security, and prosperity, so that we might fall in line with their demands. Of all their ways to hurt us, belittling our worth is the tyrant's most vicious weapon. We are unworthy, stupid, inadequate, unskilled, they tell us. Their harsh words and actions seek to box us into their concept of whom we are and where we belong. The effect: we start to fear that we are not good enough and cannot win, and tragically this can quickly become a self-fulfilling prophecy. We can come to believe we are small as they tell us we are, and we can choose to stay in their pathetic boundaries of belief rather than roam freely into our own freedom. We shall not be surprised when others demean or resist our initiatives, nor should we suppress our will and let them win. We mustn't let the wicked stoke our doubts into mighty flames of fear that consume our dreams. To these tyrants we owe nothing. A truly oppressed person cannot see beyond his or her own self-interest, and so no relationship with them will ever be joyful or reciprocal. They are blind by their ego and live in a world by themselves and for themselves. Do not grovel to these people. Do not try to placate them. Do not hope they will change. Do not engage them or hang about with them. Do not let them provoke anger. Never sink to their level. We must never tolerate a tyrant's efforts to hold us back. We mustn't let them govern our potential. Every display of submission, defiance, meekness, and compromise they see from the desperate or feeble among us gives them a pervious joy, and their power grows. And every time we back down from them or minimize ourselves, we become more fearful and weak. So let us be diligent in avoiding these people without ever deviating from our own path. We mustn't wish them ill. It's not worth the energy. And wicked people will get what they deserve as they destroy themselves. Our success lies not in their destruction, but in our own advancement. Not in the astonishment of their faces as we surge past them, but in the joy in our hearts at having prevailed despite them. I have to read this again. So let us diligent in avoiding these people without ever deviating from our own path. We mustn't wish them ill. It's not worth the energy, and wicked people will get what they deserve as they destroy themselves. Our success lies not in their destruction, but in our own advancement. Not in the astonishment on their faces as we surge past them, but in the joy in our hearts at having prevailed despite them. The mental projection of fear. While many people in our lives might seek to stoke our doubts and fears, the vast majority will seek to support us. More will seek to pull us up than push us down. People know that in allowing us to chase our dreams unencumbered, they are silently giving themselves permission to pursue their own. No matter how many bore and bastards we meet in life, we must remember that we have friends all around us. We mustn't hesitate to ask for their help, inspiration, and wisdom. The hard truth of life is that though our fear is often socially crude and conditioned, it is more often a result of deregulation of our own minds. We misuse our mental facilities by barely using them at all. We have the means to extinguish our fears, but we lack discipline in using it. Like having the extinguisher in our hands as our home burns, but choosing not to use it because we'd have to aim. How often do we sense worry, but rather than combating it with consciousness, though, let it burn? How often do we obsess on negative things that they grow into a great scorching fire of anxiety? For many people, this happens unchecked so often and for so long, they are no longer aware of the fact that predictable thought patterns, all of which they can anticipate and control and transform, are causing them to be fearful. They just feel afraid all the time and they think there is nothing they can do about it. Like a sad child holding a burst balloon, she herself popped. Let us learn now, once and for all, to anticipate how our minds cultivate fear. Just as we can expect the warriors, weaklings, and wicked to derail us if we are not cautious, we can prepare for how our minds will tear us from happiness and progress. Most of the fear we feel in life is simply anxiety arising from the anticipation of two kinds of pain that change might bring. The pain associated with a loss or hardship. The first type, loss pain, is a thought pattern in which we worry that we will lose something we cherish if we take any given action. If we fear changing jobs, it is because we don't want to lose our compensation, our friends with certain coworkers, or our corner office. This thought pattern plays out in millions of subtle decisions throughout people's lives. We think, if I go on a new diet, I'm afraid I'll lose the joy I feel in eating my favorite foods. If I quit smoking, I'll lose that 20 minutes of peace I get by going outside and taking long drags, so I'm afraid to quit. If I leave the jerk, I'm afraid I'll lose the love in my life and never find anyone else to be with. The only way to combat this thought pattern is to analyze it closely, then reverse it. Once we sense that we are anticipating loss, we must question whether or not it is true. The more we look for evidence of our fears, the more we realize they are often faulty, quick assumptions of a tired and undirected mind. The small, poorly conditioned person may guess that things will be bad, whereas an intelligent, self-aware person may come to a logical conclusion based on a real-world evidence or thoughtful principle. The person who examines their fears of dieting, quitting a bad habit, or leaving a bad relationship comes to the realization there is always less to lose than to gain in making healthy decisions for themselves. This reframing requires intelligence and optimism. Once we question the assumptions causing us anxiety, we should explore the opposite of worries, focusing and obsessively as possible on what might be gained if we change. What if we begin the new diet and find new foods and recipes we love? What if we quit smoking and learn new practices that give us even more relaxation? What if in a new romantic relationship we finally find joy? We should certainly visualize these outcomes as much as we visualize dark scenes of loss. Dream up and focus on the positive, for it is much more useful than the long nightmare of negativity. The second thought pattern that causes us to fear change is related to the anticipation of hardship. We are scared to do something because we think it will be too hard on us. We worry we're not capable, worthy, or ready, and we allow that worry to stop us. But isn't this a pathetic use of mental powers? Isn't it true that with enough time, effort, and dedication, we can learn most of what we need to succeed? Isn't it true that most great accomplishments were achieved by people who at first had no idea what they were doing, who had to first endure years of struggle to bring their dream to fruition? Let's not forget that we didn't always know how to ride a bike or use a computer or make love, but we figured it out. Humans did not know how to land on the moon, but we decided it was a worthwhile endeavor, and so we struggled for a decade to puzzle it out. We became capable of the impossible. We became capable of the impossible. Thus is the story of the individual and the entire species. And yet look how small we let our minds be in so many cases. We think, I'm scared to go on a diet because I don't know if I can handle learning all the new recipes fast enough or endure a 30-minute workout. I'm afraid to quit smoking because it will be hard to know what to do with my hands without a cigarette in them. I'm too freaked out to leave my bad relationship because going online to find someone new sounds like a hassle. We are more than these small thoughts. At some point, maturity will pounce on us and ask, are you not more than your tiny worries about inconvenience? Let me say that again. Are you not more than your tiny worries about inconvenience? Isn't it a better life worth some struggle? Isn't a better life worth some struggle? Isn't a better life worth some struggle? The only way to break these thought patterns is to question and reverse them. If we simply take a moment to contemplate, we can realize we have learned and endured more difficult things in the past, and we can learn and endure what is needed now. The tools to manage the difficulties of life are within. Perhaps we can imagine ourselves actually enjoying the struggle versus fearing it. We can think, I'm looking forward to learning to cook new foods. I'm looking forward to working out with my friends. I'm excited to quit smoking because I can see myself getting up the stairs without being winded and having a long life free of addiction. I'm thrilled to look for someone who is more right for me than my last relationship. To find real love, to enjoy life with my soulmate. Let us fire our enthusiasm knowing that the learning journey toward freedom can be exciting. We must trust this. We can learn and we can grow, and we must begin now, for destiny favors the bold. We can learn, we can grow, and we must begin now, for destiny favors the bold. To some, this sounds like mere positive thinking. And what of it? We shall continue thinking negatively. What good will come from focusing on all the loss and hardships we might experience in life? There is no self-awareness in letting fear reign because our own mental sloth. We have the personal power to wield our thoughts more forcefully in the daily fight against our fears. Our thoughts will free us or destroy us. Let me say that again. Our thoughts will free us or destroy us. Maturity comes in understanding that it is our choice alone to move towards freedom. Almost done. Dealing with physical fear. It seems impossible that all our fears can be conquered by mindset alone. But they can be. It seems impossible that all our fears can be conquered by mindset alone. But they can be. Some ask, what about those real physical impulses that seem so uncontrollable? Can we also master them? How does the lion tamer walk into the pride's den unafraid? How does the public speaker stand in front of thousands without becoming ill with self-doubt? How does the executive make the decision her whole team is too afraid to make? Practice. Say it again. Practice. The lion tamer was once afraid, but he entered the den. And over time, he became unafraid. The public speaker took the stage and with time became comfortable. The executive made decisions after decision until even the big calls become easier. We can learn from these examples and choose to face what we fear. We can choose the courage to put ourselves in the vicinity of the things we fear over and over again until we grow more comfortable than confident. Let me say that again. We can choose the courage to put ourselves in the vicinity of the things we fear over and over again until we grow more comfortable and then confident. Let us reawaken to a life unbound, finding inspiration in the fact that humans throughout the millennia have learned to overcome their fears. They change how they react to fearful impulses. They took a deep breath, contemplated whether or not their fears were rational, and visualized the growth they would experience by moving forward. They took those steps forward again and again until they found that their fear was no longer so powerful or even present. This is called self-mastery. Let us learn from them and put these practices into their own lives. Let us choose to master our minds and demonstrate more power over our fears. As mature and bold adults, we can refuse to shrink from those things that might cause us anxious or hardship. We can reach toward what is always pulsing in the background that equally powerful impulse that's sure and solid would tower personal freedom. We repeat over and over, I won't let others stoke fear in my heart. We repeat over and over, I won't let others stoke fear in my heart. I choose to remain true to who I am and where my dreams direct me, no matter the hardships I might incur. I choose to remain true to who I am and where my dreams direct me, no matter the hardships I might incur. I remember it always. Fear wins or freedom wins, and I choose freedom. I remember it always. Fear wins or freedom wins, and I choose freedom. That was chapter 2 of the Motivational Manifesto. Tomorrow we'll read chapter 3. For all those that listen to this, thanks everybody. I know these are long chapters, and I know that there's a lot in there of great information. And I know a lot of people say they read this stuff, and I know a lot of people, they get motivated. Oh, I read it. But they haven't. Or at least they didn't listen to what they read. And even I, as I read it for a second time, I'm learning newer things. To give you an example, I went on stage at my company, and I was terrified to go on stage. So I didn't tell anybody. I told the people that I knew that would support me. I told my dad, and I told one of my advisors, Rich, and they all knew I was going on stage because I knew I'd have a lot of negative people. I knew I'd have a lot of people say negative stuff. But you just got to go out there and do it. If you notice, the books today, all in the chapters, all go into each other. Anyway, my name is Jeffrey Jansen. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for listening to this. Later on, I will read another book, another chapter of another book. I'm trying to get a couple in a day. I've had a lot of people ask me, so God bless everybody. I'll talk to everybody soon. Talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Bye.